Hey everyone. All right, I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds to see if anyone will come to the live. I know it's not that late. Let me see. Oh, okay. Hey. So I just wanted to talk about Witchcraft in America. It's not talked about nearly as much as it should be. And what kind of inspired me to have this conversation today was that yesterday I watched The Witch. The title of the movie was called The Witch. The subtitle was called A New England Folktale. The movie was directed by Robert Eggers, and he said he got the inspiration from the movie from his upbringing in New England, mainly New Hampshire. And the movie was super interesting and really dug deep into themes such as religion, evil, the concept of evil, misogyny, and familial conflict. And it made me really think. I'm like, anytime there's a movie like this, particularly focused on colonial America, Puritans, Pilgrims, like this movie was supposed to be like a Puritan nightmare. There usually isn't any acknowledgement and really no focus on Black narratives. And I think that was really interesting because when you think of a global Black culture or a global African culture or the African diaspora, there is a prevalence of talk on hoodoo, voodoo, juju, the occult, spirituality, nature worshiping. And I'm just always surprised that there isn't much mention on the influence of African culture on the global occult scene or the global witchcraft scene, pretty much. And I was like, So I started thinking, where is it in America that Black witches or Black people who are members of the occult get the most recognition and are thought of the most? And that is in Louisiana, right? The whole culture around voodoo, Black magic, hoodoo is really, really popular up until this day. It's popular. People swear by voodoo. People swear by Black magic. People say that it is a religion. Okay? And it's a spiritual system. Now, you think about the role the occult and witchcraft has played in this hub, Louisiana, versus the hub up north, which is New England, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, all of that, Vermont, that whole area. In Louisiana, this spiritual system, the occult and witchcraft are seen as a reality. Up until this day, it is practiced, it is respected, it is revered. And it's treated a lot differently than it is in New England. So I live close to New England now. I'm not in New England, but not so far away. And when people think of witchcraft, they just think of the Salem witch trials, right? They think of the Puritans, they think of something that is anti-Christ-like, right? Witchcraft, the devil, it's horrible, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. But in Louisiana, it's not so black and white like that. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's witchcraft. It's evil, it's bad, stay away from it, like it was in New England. Cherry Hamilton says, I'm trying to get into spiritualism, but it hasn't been easy. Yeah, it's very, do you know the word occult, Cherry? The word occult means hidden. I don't think it's meant to be easy. I think it's meant for people who don't want an easy answer. I think it's meant for people who are out here looking to create a belief system that matches them and that is something of their own. And you have to do a lot of trial and error with that. But back to me thinking about the two biggest hubs when we think of witchcraft in America. So we have New England and Louisiana. You know, there's a big difference between how each form of witchcraft or concept of witchcraft is treated. So in New England, when we think about the Salem witch trials, we just think of hysteria, we think of paranoia, we think of people getting poisoned by ergo, which was that poison in the wheat in rye, right? We think of people going insane. We think of mental illness. We don't think of something that's real. We don't associate witchcraft with something that is real and that is possible and that is like a spiritual system. We think of it as like, oh, these primitive Puritans didn't know any better. They just believed in the devil and a spiritual, and it's not real. It was just, something that manifested from misogyny and the fear of women and poisoning, right? We don't think of it as something real. But in Louisiana, it's very different. It's seen as something real and it is actively practiced. In New England, witchcraft is seen as a part of New England's history. It's not seen, wholly by the majority as something that is continually practiced until today. Geishan Doll says, "Hey, I've been back and forth with spirituality. I just walked past the metaphysical store." Whoa. Where was the metaphysical store that you walked past? That's interesting. It's super interesting. But yeah, so I just been thinking about it a lot because I watched that movie and it's just a little funny to me that Black narratives are left out of these topics of the occult and witchcraft when these topics are extremely, prevalent in Black culture. So it was just, and I understand like American culture has often ignored and left out Black narratives. However, when it comes to this particular topic in this particular area, which is the occult and witchcraft and all that, it's like, how can you talk about that without talking about African influences? Because that's mainly where this comes from. Gishan Doll says Union Square in Manhattan. Cool, nice. I was going to ask if you were in DC, but apparently you're not. So, but yeah. So I just wanted to talk about this quickly because it's been on my mind because I was inspired by the movie. I was like, hey, what if there was a movie like this, The Witch? What if there was a movie like The Witch, but had a focus on Black narratives and is a historical horror with a focus on Black narratives and the Black perspective in the New World, right? Because, if you really think about the journey that a lot of Africans took to the New World, not all, but most, that journey in and of itself was horrific. It's super easy to create a horror story off of that journey, off of the transatlantic slave trade or the Middle Passage, right? But then it's like, after they took that journey, it's even more horrific. People being split up, from their families, people losing everything, people losing their identity, their culture, their language, their history. You have a whole group of people that have no recollection of themselves and where they come from. That's horrific. Then you have the same group of people enduring unimaginable, brutal punishments to traumatize them into submission so that they can remain very docile and subservient forms of free labor, right? If you've ever read the Willie Lynch letter, or of anything on Willie Lynch, you will come across forms of torture that are unimaginable. So quartering, tying a human being up by all four limbs to different horses and setting the horses to run in opposite directions. So you have that. Horrendous. I mean, it's horrific, absolutely horrific, right? So easily a horror movie or a horror story could easily be built off of the narratives of Black people who were forced to come to the New World, right? I mean, you have stories of babies, Black babies being fed to alligators. You have stories of Black babies being dropped in cauldrons of boiling oil, all to psychologically traumatize the Black community so they would stay into submission. And when I think of this, and when I think of the spiritual traditions that were often broken and not really preserved in the New World, um, I think, hey, like there's something, there has to be some type of possible story to be explored when we think of historical horrors, and then we think of Black people in the New World, and then we think of the occult and witchcraft. Um, of course, there are records on obia, right, which is a form of spirituality similar, often seen as similar to voodoo in Jamaica and the Caribbean. But there were other forms too that we don't know so much of that were in North America. It's like hoodoo, for example, or conjure workers. People were called that. And they often use these systems of spiritualities or these belief systems to cope with the everyday horrors of slavery. So it would be interesting. So that movie, The Witch, A New England Folktale, really got my mind working on a possible story that could explore the historical horrors that Black people faced, while also incorporating the themes of the occult and witchcraft as well. I mean, that should be a project. Because that really is a nightmare, right? Because the director of The Witch, A New England Folktale, said that he wanted to create a Puritan nightmare. And he added a supernatural element to it. And I'm like, I'd love to see a type of project explored and created that showed some type of Black nightmare in the context of the New World that is also historical horror and that incorporated the supernatural and the occult and themes of witchcraft as well. Gishan Daw says, wow, I didn't know about the hot grease. Yeah, girl, look it up. Look it up. Did you know about the babies being fed to alligators in Florida, mostly? I mean, it's really disturbing, right? I mean, us humans haven't really come that far with how we treat one another. We're still very much like animals. And I know there have been plenty of movies made on slavery and all that stuff, and they're horrific in and of themselves. It's just that not many add that supernatural element to it. There is that one movie that I know of, and it is Beloved by Toni Morrison, and there's also Angel Heart, but I haven't really watched that. I tried to look for it on Netflix the other day, but I couldn't find it. But yeah. So Gishan Daw says, I heard about the baby baiting. It's really sad. I think that would be a dope movie. Oh, thank you, Gishan Daw. Yeah, I'm just brainstorming. So if anybody wants to participate, wants to be an actor or an actress in the project, let me know. Put your name in the comments or in the chat and let me know if you'd like to be involved, because I might start pitching the idea to like investors or possible sponsors for the movie or the project or short film. It could be like a short film. It doesn't have to be like a full-length movie because I have no directing experience. But it's interesting to think about these themes. I don't think a lot of people do it. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Gishan Daw, for commenting and giving me something to respond to. And Cherry Hamilton, thank you as well. So I hope you guys have a lovely night, and I hope this conversation got you thinking about the historical origins of the occult in witchcraft from the African perspective, from the Black perspective. And thank you, Gishandal. Thank you. I have been told that maybe I could be on something too by other people. All right, guys. Good night. Bye.